Hey, I'm excited to share with you Avimore by Alliance Fence. So Avimore has a couple different styles. We've got the Avimore Modern and the Avimore Breeze. Avimore in essence refers to all the components that we use with our universal post, which is an aluminum post. All of our Avimore components have a matte black finish, a matte black powder coat on it. And so starting with the first component in the system, which is the post, just a little bit about it. Like I said, it is aluminum, it is extruded, and it has 3x3 dimension, and it is an H design. And so if you can see here, we've got basically a channel on each side of this post, which naturally makes it a line post. And what makes it universal is that we've got some accessories that we can plug in an end or add on a corner piece to make it fill in for just about all of the post requirements that you'll need on your fence. And so with that, we'll dive into some of the other pieces and see how they work. But the Avimore post comes in several different lengths. We have it in a standard 6-foot long, an 8-foot long, a 9-foot, and a 12-foot length. And we even have a 6-foot plated post option, 6-foot and 8-foot plated post options. And so here a little bit later, I'll also show you what one of the plated posts looks like. But anyway, diving into the only position in the fence that we do not use this post on is for the gates. We thought it would be a better idea to use a steel post for our gates. And so we've got just a standard 3x3 iron post. It has a matching finish to it, and so it's pretty seamless when it comes to the install. And then obviously your gate will just bolt up to it, and if you need to make it an end post, we've got an accessory to help convert this into an end post as well. And so going back to our styles of fence, the two styles of fence, Avimore Modern and Avimore Breeze, will both use the same post system. And so going back to this universal post real quick, this universal post has a couple components, some accessories that will go with it. One of them is what we call a gap filler. Now this gap filler is this little plate, and if you look closely on here, it's got these little ribs that will actually clip in to the edge of this post. And so it's actually pretty simple once you line it up. Obviously doing this all freestanding is going to be a little bit different than doing it with it mounted in the ground. But you'll hear that kind of clip into place. And once it clips into place, it turns that gap into, it closes that gap and turns it into an end. And so now if you wanted to take this and turn it into a corner or even a three-way, we've got what we call a U-channel. And now the Avimore U-channel is designed to match the opening in that post. And so it will actually hold the rails and pickets and things that are designed to go in into that pocket of the post. And so what we would do is once you have your post, we would take your U-channel and you just mount it onto the side. And so typically I would use 3 screws, one on the top, one in the middle, one on the bottom. And what I would normally do is I would try to line that up so that the top of this U-channel was in line with the top of your top rail. And so we'll talk about how to figure that out and calculate that here later on. So posts, pretty standard. I like to tell people it's a little bit of a mix between the Simtech or Buff-Tech molded and like a vinyl fence. And once you get them installed, really the rest is pretty simple. So going back to our different fence styles, we have our Avimore Modern style. Avimore Modern refers to mixed materials. So what that would be is it would have a pocket rail on top and bottom. And so we've got this rail here, I've just got a little piece of it. And this rail, if you look at it here, has that pocket in it. The rail actually measures itself about 2 3/4 of an inch tall. is about 1 inch wide and is designed to fit snug inside of our post here. And so once you get that in there, and you can get it adjusted any height that you need it to be, yeah, it just works like a normal pocket rail. So if you've done any vinyl fence or anything of the sort, you basically take your pocket rail on the bottom, set it down, stack in whatever material you want to go into your fill, and then you take your top rail and you set it on top to finish the fence. Really quite simple. A couple specific things about the pocket rail. Like I said, it's about a 2 3/4 inch profile. It does have a rib in the middle of it, and so the pocket depth comes to be about 1 3/8. And so 1 3/8, 1 1/4 roughly. And so when you are calculating the body of your fence with the materials that you're putting in, depending on how high you're going to make it, the rails will add roughly 3 inches to the height of whatever material you put into it. So these rails come in 3 different lengths. We've got a 64-inch length, a 72-inch length, and a 96-inch length. And so we'll dive into some of the materials and why we have those measurements here in just a minute. With our Avimore Breeze is designed to be all aluminum. It was originally designed to be a semi-private fence, and what we ended up doing is we ended up taking an extruded aluminum picket. Again, it has the same finishes as everything else. It's lightweight, easy to use. Being aluminum benefit of being aluminum is that it's easy to cut down or work with. It's not going to rust. It's not going to have a lot of the breakdown and rusting away, breaking apart, kind of like what some of your steel profiles will. And then having it already come from the factory with a finish on it means that literally it's install and you're done, just like a lot of the fence components that we like to install these days. So a couple things about this picket is it measures obviously 1 inch like the rail does so that it fits inside the post, and then it is a 3.5 inch tall profile, and it is designed, like I said, to slide down in that post. And you can set this up in multiple different ways. One, you can set them in where they're just stacked in on top of each other and create yourself a privacy style fence, or if you wanted to make this a semi-private, which was the original intention with this, we've got some spacers that go in the posts and actually add a little bit of a gap between these. And then I've seen a few other people be creative and do some custom things with custom spacings, and then some people even do privacy down below and semi-private up above. Anyway, the options are there. It's pretty versatile. If you can think it up, then yeah, go ahead and do it. Pretty simple. Going back to our gates, there's a couple of different ways you could build a gate. A lot of gate builders like to just take their steel and weld up a frame, and then if you do that, you can take our U-channel and mount it inside that frame, send that frame off to be powder coated, and then you just fill your section inside with this U-channel on the inside of it. And although that is an option, not everybody's set up to do the welding, and not everybody's set up to do all that custom gate building stuff. And so what we've done is we've gone out and we've designed a gate upright. So as a gate upright, it basically is a 2 by 3 profile. It has that 1 inch channel, which is similar to what's in the post. It gives you almost 2 inches of depth in there. And what that allows you to do is basically, to make your gates, you would take your same pocket rail or picket, you'd slide it into this material, and then what we end up doing is we end up just using a screw to screw off. Basically, I like to do 2 screws kind of diagonally across the joint. And then if you need to do a rackable gate, you can just cut a little bit of a taper onto your rail of whatever angle you need that to be, and then slide it in there, and you can also build yourself a rackable gate. And so with this being screwed together, it's something that you could build on site. It's really as easy as building a section. You just slide in your rail, bottom rail, screw it off, stack in your material just like you'd stack in your section, and then you screw off your top rail. And I normally recommend having the rail on the bottom be flush at the bottom of the upright, and then we've got a cap that'll go on that. Or sorry, on the bottom there wouldn't be a cap, so flush on the bottom, and then on the top, standard here in our area is to do a 2-inch reveal between the top rail and the top of the upright, just because that's similar to what we do on the posts. Although the cap is a low profile cap and goes inside these open channels in the upright, and so I have seen people make the top of the upright flush with the top of the rail, and that also looks really sharp when it's installed. So gates are really simple. If you decide to use our just bolt together system. So let's dive into a little bit more of sections and how things are held together. Like I said, using the H post, you're able to just stack things in there. And so that things can go in there and be secure. There's a few different methods to get that to be secured, but the best method, in my opinion, is we've got a bracket. We call it a 2-hole bracket. It's basically got a shelf that's the same width as what the pocket is on the post. It's got a couple holes on both sides of this. And what this bracket is designed to do is basically inside your post, it's designed to set in the channel, kind of like this. And so if you've got your post going up here and you want your bottom rail to sit at whatever height, you just install this bracket down there just to match where you want that bottom rail to be. And that rail will just sit on top of that bracket. And so in order to install that bracket, obviously you get it all lined up, and then we've got a little 3/8 head black self-tapper screw. It's a number 14 by 1 inch, and anyway, that'll just drive right in there, and those 2 screws will hold that together and be quite strong for you. The other alternatives, if you don't want to have the bracket on there, some people like to just put the material in there and then set it with a screw from the outside. And then I've even seen some people turn the bracket, turn the bracket, set it in there, and create a shelf. The shelf is much more shallow, and so you have to have your rails cut much more precise in order to do it that way. But I've seen people do that as well. And so with this 2-hole bracket, we're talking about the bottom rail sitting on it and creating a shelf there. When it comes time to get into the top of your section, though, you stack in your section however it's going to be. And when you get to the top, you go through and do basically the same thing. So you get your top rail put in there, and then take your bracket, one more of these brackets, and tie it off as well. And so once you've got your bottom bracket secured, your top bracket secured, this section's not going anywhere. And then other types of brackets that we have, we've got a bracket that we call a 1-hole bracket, or a 1-inch spacer, which is this one. It's another winged bracket, and this winged bracket acts as a spacer. It does have a hole to have a screw to tie it off with. And if you were going to do that, we've got a number 10 by 1.5 inch screw that would allow you to screw that off. But because of the wings that are on it, if you're using the 2-hole bracket on the bottom of the section, what this 1-inch bracket would allow you to do is, with our breeze pickets, let's say you've gone through and you've you've set your bottom one, you've got your rail sitting on top of that on the bottom. What happens is now you take this wing bracket in behind it, and this wing bracket will actually go kind of behind the picket on one side. It will create this shelf. Basically the shelf would sit above it, and then when you put your next picket in, I'm going to do this vertically just because it'll be easier to hold it up and show you. Then once you get that spacer put in there, it gives you a 1 inch space. And so you put one of those in on both sides of your section, and then that's how you get your 1 inch space. And so that is the first bracket design that we had for the spacing. And like I said, it works great. But one of the downsides to having that shelf is that it is limited and gives you about a 1/2 inch of play. So if you're more than a 1/2 inch off on your measurement, it's less forgiving. So we came out with another option. So a third bracket that we have, which we call a cube bracket. And this cube bracket is designed to fit inside the post. Basically, you'd slip it in through the top, and this bracket, because of the lips that are on the opening of this post, prevents that bracket from coming out. So it can slide in and out and it can slide up and down, but it will not come out the face. And so if you're doing this with the breeze sections, again, these would just sit between those pickets to give you that space that you'd need. And so inside the post, it makes for a much faster install, and anyway, it's a great option. One thing about this bracket though, it is a 1 3/8 bracket, whereas the winged is a 1 inch bracket. And so being 1 3/8, you want to make sure that you're using basically all the same system. You don't want to mix these on the same job. So the reason why I mentioned that is the cube bracket does have one downside. The downside is it will not work inside of a U-channel, where the winged bracket will work in a U-channel. As I drop it. And then the second place where we run into issues with the bracket is in the gate upright. Again, the gate upright matches the width for the rail, but it does not have that channel for that bracket to fit into it. And so with that, if you do decide to use the cube brackets on the posts, and which I recommend you do if you've got tons of lines. When it comes to doing your corner posts with the U-channel, or your gate posts with the U-channel, or even your gate uprights, you would end up having to screw off those pickets at every point, matching that space that you need. We are currently in the process of developing a 1 inch version of the cube, so that you could use the wing brackets in the uprights and the U-channel, and then also have the ease of installation with the cube. But that should be available early 2024. The other thing I wanted to mention about the bracket is with this cube bracket being 1 3/8, in a typical 6 foot tall fence, you could save yourselves 1 to 2 pickets depending on the body that you want to have. And so where the breeze is a premium option, if somebody's looking to save a few bucks, using the cube bracket will actually save a picket in each section, which could shave a little bit off of the cost of the fence. So in summary, those are the components for the Avimore system. Now I want to jump back to our available materials for the Avimore Modern, and we've pretty much got 3 options to work with. The first one we started to do when we first launched this material was just a vinyl slat. So vinyl TNG. We are a Homeland vinyl distributor, and we launched this product primarily using the Homeland's Homewood series, which is their simulated wood grain vinyl, which obviously that has a 7/8 by 6 tongue and groove slat. And one of the things about this slat is they were most readily available in 16-foot lengths. And when we launched this, we decided we wanted to have as little waste as possible on the fill. And so out of a 16-footer, you can cut it into thirds and get 64-inch pieces. And so that's where we came up with the 64-inch pocket rail. And so using vinyl, you could install this both horizontally and vertically with the same 64-inch slat, and get to roughly the same, nearly the same body. If you install in a horizontal configuration using a 6-inch TNG, if you do not trim any of the slats and you end up using 11 slats, once you add the rails onto it, it gives you a body that's roughly 69 inches. If you use this slat in a vertical orientation, you got your 64 inches plus your 3 inches of rail, so that gives you a 67-inch body. One of the things that we do recommend if we do use a wood grain vinyl is we do recommend using a slat insert. So we've got this aluminum I-beam insert that we would recommend using a few of those in each section, roughly 1 every 2 feet of fence. And so on a typical 6-foot section, whether it's horizontal or vertical, we would recommend about 3 of these per section, and you just throw them in a slat roughly evenly spaced, and they'll do their thing and keep those slats from moving. So another thing with this pocket rail on this rail, since this rail does measure for 7/8 material, you can actually install this rail with anything 7/8 wide. So as much as I would love to supply vinyl to the whole world, I know a lot of you have your likes and the people that you're already working with. And if you already have a vinyl system, a vinyl product that you like, or even a color that maybe Homeland doesn't offer, as long as it measures 7/8 thick, or 7/8 thick, it will fit into this pocket rail, and you can cut it and install it, and it'll work great. So as we were growing our Avimore line, our Avimore Modern line, we actually branched out into a couple other options. First option I want to mention is a cedar TNG. So we actually stock a cedar TNG. So if somebody really likes their wood fencing, and they're okay with the maintenance and the staining and all that comes with wood fence, but they don't want to necessarily do the wood post in the ground or the postmaster as the alternative, and they're looking for something that looks a little bit more modern, we can actually throw this into our system, and it'll stack in very similar to what the vinyl slats did or do. And so if you are going to do the wood TNG, I would recommend staining the boards before installing them. That'll just keep your Avimore system looking much sharper. And anyway, those that have worked with wood kind of know what wood is and how wood goes. And so with this board that we offer, it is a 7/8 thick. It is a 5-inch board, and then we've got them in a 64-inch length to match the vinyl profiles. And so this will install basically identically to how your vinyl would, with it being a 5-inch instead of a 6-inch. If we're going in a horizontal configuration, we would typically use about 13 boards. Now, because wood is not perfect, and not all wood stays as straight as it should all the time, there may be a need to trim a picket in order to get a uniform body on your fence. And so just plan on a little bit of waste when you order these, and plan on using order about 5% more than what you need. And that way you can get these installed and going, and then just plan on having to trim a little bit on these to get them to install. But yeah, once they're stained up and installed, and you get those rails right in line on the bottom and the top, it actually gives a really good, really sharp looking wood fence. Now, the last option that we stock to fill our Avimore Modern is a board that we call Avimore Elite. And so what the Avimore Elite board is, it is a composite fence board that is built T&G. It's built for fence. We have it manufactured to our specifications. The board currently has about a 15-year warranty on it. And as T&G, basically having that interlocking function gives this a really, really smooth and clean install once these are in and together. And again, they can be installed vertically or horizontally. And the measurements on this board is 7/8 thick, it's 5.5 inches wide, and then we run these at 64 inches tall also, just so that we can stick to the uniformity of our system, and doing, like I said, 64-inch centers on a horizontal, and then when you do a vertical, we actually have the 6-foot rail to be able to go 6 feet wide when you go vertically. So composite T&G is available in about 5 different colors, and then we have them in a wood grain pattern texture, as well as a sanded finish. So this would be our black, this would be our gray, but we've got all of our colors available in either the sanded finish or the wood grain finish. And here, as these have been installing, they've been just a hot item. They look good, they install well, and I mean, this is actually across the board on every Avimore job. I've never seen an Avimore job go in that didn't sell another one. So it's really a fun product to work with, and it looks sharp, and it looks so sharp it'll actually make sales for you. So that's just a simple rundown of all of our Avimore Modern, Avimore Breeze components, and the next video that I'll be making will show the assembly of just a simple display and talk about some of the things that you need to do to actually install this fence. So, see